Could the reign of terror actually be over? It looks like Rachel Maddow's crown is slipping over there at MSNBC, and it's not just the ratings. There are other things going on right now. The most obvious is the ratings, where she's lost about a quarter of her audience overall. And that downtick started in November, right after Trump won the election. She's down from 2.3 million to 1.8 million, and just like CNN, which we covered back in January, this network is headed for a similar fall. So, for this evening's video, I want to make sure you have the full scoop. The numbers are crashing, the staff is being axed, especially hers, and Maddow's own tantrum over Joy Reid has absolutely backfired. Is this the end of that reign? I would say so, but stick around, because here we go. But before we get started, just a real quick reminder, I am headed for 100K by the end of the year. I can do that with your help. All I need you to do is subscribe down below if you're not already. Turn on the notification bell and turn all the notifications on. Then check out 1 or 2 great videos a day coming from yours truly. And pop in for a live stream or 2. I promise it'll be relatively painless. And one thing it definitely is free. Free's pretty good. All right, let's get into Rachel's nightmare. First and foremost, we have to start with the numbers. That's right. We are looking at a drop of about 22%, which was confirmed on March 13th. In that period of time, 1/4 of the audience is gone. And it's not just rock bottom. It's a constant bleed off of individuals who are just tired of the same old Trump hate, which seems to be the only thing MSNBC covers these days. So with a little bit over 2 minutes into this video, I'm going to tell you, it's going to get uglier. Really, really ugly. MSNBC's Rachel Maddow has lost roughly a quarter of her audience since 2024, and it's easy to see how it happened. You can only lie to people so many times before they walk away from you. Rachel pushed the Russia collusion hoax for a long time, and every other anti-Trump conspiracy. That's her jam. That's her brand. That's what she does. And after years and years and years of her audience hanging out there with her, hoping that the final bombshell was just around the corner and their TDS would be satisfied, it never came. So on the numbers front, the straw that seemed to break the camel's back, so to speak, was the election itself. Maddow and her network assured their viewers that there was no way Trump would win again. Then he did, and the viewers obviously felt betrayed. Well, I'm sure they did. They'd been lied to consistently for who knows how long, 12, 15 years. And all of it was bologna sausage. And of course, Fox News was right there to gleefully report that MSNBC's Rachel Maddow sees double-digit ratings drop since Trump's win. And that's measured through March 7th. She's gone from 2.3 million viewers down to 1.8 million. And that happened only a matter of 2 months. So who knows where we'll end up at the end of the day. And worse yet, all the numbers that matter, the ones that put you in the right demographic to buy things, well, they're down substantially too. And that is not good news. 2025 has not gone well. And with all that pressure on Rachel's back, you could probably understand why she lost her mind the other night when they fired, well, a good portion of the people that work for her, only to look to hire them back for other positions, and fired several hosts, on-air talent, that were dismissed to go find another job elsewhere. One of those people was Joy Reid, of course, and we talked about that here in a video on this channel just a few weeks ago. During her particular rage out moment, she called what the MSNBC bosses did a big mistake. She doesn't seem to be able to acknowledge the kind of money that she's making right now at the network, and perhaps if she sacrificed a bit of her salary, she could probably keep about 150 producers. I know, that sounds ludicrous, but it's true. Rachel Maddow took a pay cut last year from her $30 million salary down to $25 million. One of the points of doing that was so she could not work every single day, and also to make the necessary sacrifice to the network so they would keep her on the air. For this magnanimous offer, she was rewarded a 5-year contract. At the same time, the person that she just went and defended out loud in an outrage-fueled tirade only was given a 1-year contract term, meaning they were looking at getting rid of Joy a long, long time ago. And while Rachel's tirade went pretty much everywhere, she did focus on the racial component, hinting, or more than hinting, that there was a racial bias in place, suggesting that cutting both Reid and Wagner, two non-white hosts, was obviously driven by some kind of racism. But here's a broader breakdown that's brought to us by Victor Davis Hanson, who Francois Leclerc actually posts about on X. MSNBC is a money-losing disaster, firing entire swaths of staff while their top hosts rake in millions. Rachel Maddow works just 1 day a week, normally, and still pockets $25 million a year, yet complains about staff layoffs. The suggestion? Rachel, how about donating one paycheck to the workers you pretend to care about? I think that's a pretty solid take. Meanwhile, Joy Reid, who has spent years pushing racial division, loses her show because no one is watching. And let's not forget, Sheldon Whitehouse is calling out conflicts of interest while his wife's organization raked in millions from the very legislation that he votes on. Wow, that's true. Stating that the hypocrisy is off the charts, they preach socialism, but live like elitist kings, while their audience disappears. No wonder MSNBC is collapsing. That's a solid take right there. It's quite possible that Rachel Maddow's show is the only thing keeping this network glued together at the moment. And if that's the case, they're about to lose her 4 days a week, which Ad Age brings up in just a minute. But another thing Ad Age was talking about is the fact that MSNBC's total primetime has sunk 57% post-election, which are not good numbers overall. But there's worse news than the money, or the ratings. And yeah, I wouldn't believe that myself, except it's true. Halfway through this video, I'm going to tell you that Maddow's rant didn't just flop and, wreck her relationship with some of the people in upper management. It tanked her credibility. The Daily Mail has pointed out that since her little rant, 5 million viewers have ditched MSNBC. So her numbers are down 24% in 2025 versus last year. In other words, her numbers have slumped even harder, and we probably won't see them until next quarter. And as I mentioned before, she's not taking credit for something she absolutely has done. Helped decide some of these staff cuts. I mean, not personally, but with her enormous paycheck. And even Slay News is tying the doom for MSNBC to Rachel Maddow's audience numbers plummeting. But that doesn't seem to stop Rachel from covering or continuing to push the anti-Trump propaganda, which is weird because his numbers keep going up. You would think they would want to chase a winner, right? Right? But there's a huge problem with that, and it's that the viewers can only be misled for so long before they start jumping ship, which is what people have speculated has driven everything since the election. For years, Maddow peddled every anti-Trump conspiracy theory she could think of, as I mentioned before. And, those all didn't seem to pay off. And the loss? Even worse. But Slay News reiterates something that I believe is true, and I'm pretty sure that it's going to be a trend that continues. MSNBC's most recognizable host is now bleeding viewers. There's no sign of the hemorrhaging stopping anytime soon. And Maddow isn't the only one in trouble either. MSNBC is facing an identity crisis, and I would have to agree. They really don't know what they are, and they're about to be spun off into oblivion in a new effort called Spinco as Comcast dumps the network, along with a few other choice toys that they just don't play with anymore. And with Joe Biden out of the office and Trump back in power, the network is struggling to keep its audience engaged. Well, yeah, you basically developed a case of TDS and everybody that watches you, and they're maybe not interested in having TDS anymore, or at least not your particular strain of it, or maybe they're just tired of being lied to, which is why they've turned away from CNN and others as well. You see, when you're plummeting numbers, one of the things you worry about is money. And MSNBC is writing an enormous check to a handful of people that are just frankly overpaid for the returns that the network gets in terms of ratings and the number of people that fit the top demo. which honestly are the people that pay the bills. And more hosts are being cut left and right. It's becoming increasingly clear that Maddow is no longer the untouchable star that she once was. And I'll agree with that. There are no sacred cows when your company is about to go down the tubes. Decent chance you find yourself out sitting on a corner somewhere wondering where it all went. I think Rachel Maddow is going to see that fate develop probably in the next year to 18 months, but it could be sooner. I don't know. I just see that the direction for MSNBC is not upwards. But I think what's most terrifying at this point, if you're Rachel Maddow, MSNBC, or anybody involved in this fiasco, is that Ad Age is actually talking about your poor ratings and the direction of your news company. And if Ad Age is talking about it, ad people are talking about it. And that's not a good thing. At current, MSNBC is trying to rebuild itself into a news network, and they have a lot of work to do as they're, again, as I mentioned before, being kicked to the curb with Comcast not shedding a tear while putting their elbow in their back to get out. The new lady, Miss Cutler, is in the midst of rebuilding MSNBC and will soon be separating the entity entirely from NBC Universal News Group. The network will remain in New York, but it has to hire over 100 journalists in order to build up its actual news gathering entity, which is going to cost more money, which means you're going to have to cut more out of a pretty fixed budget at this point, and that means more producers and maybe even hosts. Do you know how far $25 million would go in an organization that's in its rebuilding year? Pretty far. Wonder if somebody's thinking about that right now. Worse yet, at a time when Rachel Maddow is the face of this network, she's going to restrict herself back down to 1 day a week, because once she's done with the first 100 days of Trump, she's done with that part of her gig. And can MSNBC really afford a talent that only shows up to work 1 day a week? I don't think so. If you look at the overall primetime viewership for MSNBC, they need eyeballs. 660,000 average viewers, that's not good. It's a sinking ship. You need to get off. When you start to see the rats getting off, you need to get off. And some folks on X have actually suggested that she's peaked. And when you have a 29% demo drop, advertisers are starting to look for discounts. Speaking of Endgame, we should probably look at it ourselves. Maddow's clinging to about 1.7 million viewers. But vultures are circling. MSNBC's overhaul has dropped people off the front lines, anchors with faces that have become familiar to people who actually watch this tedious network. But they're easily replaceable because they're only known to about 660,000 regular folks. A $25 million Mondays only gig is pretty appealing, but for network executives, probably fairly nauseating. And Jen Psaki really hasn't done very much since joining the network. She's sitting in the same permanent second place in her time slot that she just can't escape, nor will she. And when she steps over the line to step into the Tuesday to Friday slot for Maddow, she's toast. And it leads me to a question I want you to answer. How is she avoiding the axe? She's a financial liability, and she doesn't seem to have enough upside to protect herself with. Do we blame this collapse of her ratings on TDS burnout, or is there something more? So I ask you this question. What's next? Where is MSNBC going to go? Will Rachel Maddow be a part of the plan going forward, or is she an asset to be tossed aside to cut weight as the new company emerges? Is Jen Psaki capable of rising to the ranks of the number one anchor for the network? Or does her affiliation with the Biden administration leave her permanently tainted with failure? Again, let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below. As always, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, wash your hands because it's good hygiene, because it's cold and flu season. And until next time, see ya for real.